Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We'll speak English because the panel is quite international. You have two French people, one from Slovakia and one from Hungary. So the presentation will also be in English. My name is Yves Maurier. I'm retired from the European Aviation Safety Agency, and I'm also retired from the French DGAC a while ago, I would say. So this is the agenda for our session. It's devoted to how the general aviation has evolved. The intention is that I will make a short introduction about the panel and about the panelists. Then we will show what is general aviation. We were not sure that maybe everyone was aware of its extent, actually. And then we will have three presentations, one by Vladimir, who will present the EASA General Aviation Flight Path 2030, so how EASA is working to improve, I would say, the general aviation, to make it, at one time it was safer, greener, and smarter, I think. And okay, thank you. Peter will talk about technological development and electrification, which is an important part of general aviation. And Jean-Pierre will talk about social aspects of general aviation. Then we will have a panel discussion on various topics, economic impact of general aviation, how general aviation contributes to the environment and to the reduction of the CO2 footprint. It's also a first step to a career in aviation, and that's an important element. And we will also speak about new technologies, in particular those that can improve safety. And finally, we will speak about the dreaded word of regulations. Then we'll try to give you a little time for questions, and then we'll make a conclusion and wrap up. So first, introducing our panelists. So starting by Jean-Pierre. So Jean-Pierre represents Europair Sport. He's a private pilot. He's an ultralight pilot. He's a vice president of Europair Sport. He was also involved in the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, which is leading the sport activity of GA. And by trade, he's an engineer. Vladimir was, before joining EASA in 2011, he's an air traffic control person. In EASA, he has continued to do air traffic control, but he's also the project manager for two activities, the general aviation, the Flight 2030, which I used to call General Aviation Roadmap. And he is also the project manager of an interesting safety innovation, which is eye conspicuity, which he will present and show the different aspect and why it is different from other concepts. And Peter works for the General GAMA, the General Aviation, General Aircraft
General Aviation Manufacturers.
General Aviation Manufacturers. He's based in Brussels. He has been working also for representing the New Zealand. He was a commission representative at New Zealand in
New Zealand government and US government.
And US government. So he has quite a lot of experience, and he is an expert in political science. So how to, I would say, go through this world of lobbying and regulations, which is certainly an important activity for general aviation. So that's our panel. So we will try to cover it in as much as we can. So I will start by the presentation of general aviation. So we wanted to show to you the great variety of general aviation. It's an automatic set of slides which shouldn't take too much time. I've tested it, so it's not too long. And I will launch it now. So that's a definition by ICAO. Then you can see here what is passenger and cargo, and what is the rest of general aviation. It could be defined as usual mobility, but in three dimensions. So it shows, I would say, it's everything except public air transport. So it's in terms of number of aircraft, it's huge. So you will also some police activity, ambulances, firefighting, agriculture, cranes and flying cranes. So there is some part which is commercial, but a lot which is leisure. That's without motor, with motor. Off-road or off-runway. Even vintaged. Balloons. What we call microlight. And not forget the model aircraft. So here is a bit of a recap. And we wanted to make clear that they comply with the common rule of the air, which is how to use the airspace. So that was the introduction we wished to make to give to everyone the idea of the world of general aviation. As you can see, it's very diverse. And I thank Jean-Pierre for having put this presentation together. I think it was quite a good one. Okay. Now I will give the floor to Vladimir to present, I would say, what the EASA is doing in terms of supporting general aviation. Voilà. And if you want to take over, Vladimir, please.
Thank you very much, Yves, and thank you very much to the organizers of this session and whole event for inviting EASA to present and to discuss with you and answer questions. As mentioned by Yves, I'm in charge of the General Aviation Flight Path 2030 Plus. This is where we see where we want to bring general aviation in that year and beyond. This means we want to prepare general aviation for the future. So we are it's all agency project. It's all agency program nowadays, and it looks at transversal measures that are affecting general aviation. So we are not looking at a specific topic only. We are looking mostly at the topics that are transversal. When it comes to training, we want to be sure that operation or aircraft certification design is proportionate, and we do not over-regulate in one domain on the same aircraft and pilot than we would do in other domains. The nature of this project is transversal, not only in terms of substance, but also it's how it's organized. We are 3 key people there running the program, but we have many collaborators in the agency, so I'm just privileged to be here as a face, but there is many more very enthusiastic and knowledgeable people about general aviation in EASA, whom I have a privilege to represent here. It's not only about me, there is a lot of contributors. If we can switch to the next slide. So this is what the GA Flight Path 2030 Plus is about. It's a big statement, but now you see how it translates to the objectives or to the specific domains. In terms of safety, we have quickly realized that more regulation doesn't work in enhancing safety to be on certain threshold. You can regulate, but there will not be improvement unless you do different things. And we've understood together with our stakeholders that the key aspect of how we can really save lives, both in the planes and on those on the ground, is that we can enhance safety culture. And that's where we put our efforts. So our slogan is, when we make pilots aware of the risks, they will be able to do safer decisions themselves, because in the cockpit they are usually on their own. They do not have large organizations behind, other than rather small and lean clubs, and sometimes they are completely alone. So safety through safety culture. Sustainability dimension has two facets of the coin. So it's a sustainability in terms of environmental sustainability, but it's also about that we want to make sure that general aviation will sustain the future in a good shape, in a good numbers. So we are looking at making sure that the activities can sustain the pressures from less aerodromes, less airspace, and so on. How to achieve all of that? It's not only through safety culture. We see a great potential in technology, innovative technology. So we are looking at digital tools, more innovative tools, new things, new concepts. We all know that these are being tested in general aviation usually first. Peter and others will talk about it later on, so I don't have that. But the digitalization and novel technologies, new concepts, it's one of the key topics on the agenda. And in terms of inclusiveness, we know that there are many people like my ex-colleague and still a good friend, Yves, retiring, and they can serve aviation, and including general aviation, even though they are retired. We don't want these people to disappear from aviation. We want these people to be able to be part of that, to be able to exercise their activities and pass on the good knowledge and experience they've got throughout their professional lives to younger generation. We also want general aviation to start with a younger age. It was very nicely put on the slide. It's not only when you start flying, but before you start flying, many people are involved in model planes, and that's where they get interested, where they get passionate, and they move on to various roles in the aviation in the future. So these are the facets we are looking, and this is the main ambition of the program. On the next slide, I think there is what we are working on in terms of substance. So this is the real measures, what we want to do, and they are transversal by nature. So this declared by default initiative is looking at how to simplify administrative burden and unnecessary administration and waiting for approvals in general aviation, in certain general aviation operations. And to that end, we want to develop a policy that will define that for certain segment of aviation, a declaratory system should be sufficient. We have a good experience with declaratory system already. After we introduced a declared training organization in EASA certified aircraft, we have a declared aircraft where there is minimum or limited involvement of the EASA and NAA experts before the aircraft is actually sold to the customers. So there are elements of declared introduced in the system, but they are not always very harmonized when you take it from the user perspective. So they do not understand when the aircraft can be declared, why my medical should be still certified to the highest standard. So this is what we are looking for. We have a rule simplification project in EASA to be run that has just started to run. It's a major project which should simplify and cut the red tape across the whole aviation spectrum of EASA activities. But a big proportion of that obviously will be in general aviation, and we work closely with the colleagues involved leading this project to make sure that this declared by default policy is introduced sometimes next year. There will be also there is already an agreement, a proposal to work on a declared medical system for light end of general aviation, and we will work with on this topic as a pilot project. Another topic, very interesting topic, and it's coming from the GA, is the eye conspicuity reality. So we want to make aircraft conspicuous in the skies a reality, but not only to show in a simplified and affordable way your position to the other airspace users flying nearby, including drones, but also to be able to capture the right information and receive it in flight. And again, we are back to the pilot. We want pilots to be better informed in flight with real-time updates, so that they can make they have better situational awareness, and based on that they can make safer decisions. So instead of flying maybe through evolving bad weather situation, they would have an opportunity to divert to the other location. So greener, faster. Our focus in the program itself is on infrastructure aspects. We want to have a clear policy on fast charging infrastructure, which needs to be compatible regardless whether the aircraft is EASA or non-EASA or nationally regulated. It doesn't make sense to have different charges for each aircraft. And the same goes for synthetic fuels. Here, and sustainable fuels especially, here we need to ensure that any transition to these fuels doesn't endanger safety. We cannot afford that planes will be without propulsion because of the wrong mixture of fuels in the skies. And Fly Direct, this is linked to digital infrastructure. We want really every small aerodrome have a digital instrument approach procedure, so that general aviation pilot can fly from small airport to small airport without necessarily making disturbance at the larger or regional airports. And also this will create a safety net of opportunities that you can divert. If you have many places to divert, it's more likely that you will take a diversion than pushing your flight through. That's objectives of EASA. One of the next slide, there is on the next slide there is very important one. You see the safety is always first, but we have a specific objective for each of those domains. And in safety for this year, we are very privileged to have a flight path 2030 flight reflected at EASA level, and we talk about delivering program objectives related to electronic conspicuity and prevention of mid-air collisions, and I've talked about it a little bit earlier. On the next slide, I think there is yes, and that's already talking about this electronic conspicuity. So I stop here, and if there are any questions later on, I would be glad to answer them. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to switch to Peter.
Well, maybe I can already start introducing myself and GAMA a little bit in a few words. So GAMA is the General Aviation Manufacturers Association. We are a global industry organization. We represent about 150 manufacturers of general aviation aircraft, airframers, engine manufacturers, software developers, anything that's related to general aviation manufacturing. Most likely they're a member of ours. So today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about about one specific segment, which is really the innovative kind of new forms of propulsion that are being developed. So I won't talk about the business jets. I'll talk about really the kind of new types of propulsion that are in the works or close to coming to market, which should help us kind of decarbonize aviation in the longer term. And the key point that I want you to take away from this is that general aviation is really the cradle of innovation when it comes to bringing new technologies to market, to testing them, to proving them, to ironing out the hiccups, the bumps, and then bringing them to market. So if you can go to the next slide. There's a lot of buzz about, you know, when are we going to see the next fully electric 737? I mean, that's going to be still way off. There's a lot of different technology at work, and if you were at the first discussion of the day, the CEO of ADP, Aéroport de Paris, she made a very good point when she said we need to be technologically neutral. I mean, we could not agree more. Regulation needs to allow for all these different pathways to flourish, and you know, test different designs, potentially fail, potentially come back and do it again, do it better. So I just want to give you a kind of an overview of the kind of cool things that are being worked on right now. Again, keep in mind that this is the stuff that's actually closest to coming to the market. So it's not your big 100-seat 737 or Airbus. It's these products. So battery electric aircraft, we already have the first fully certified battery electric 2-seat aircraft in the world, certified by EASA. It's the Pipistrel Velis Electro from Slovenia. It's flying. It's in flight schools. Of course, we all know the limitations of battery technology. The range is an issue. Of course, this is truly zero emissions, zero tailpipe emission, but it is an issue. So we have the Integral E, which is the Aura Aero airplane. It's not yet certified, but it's close. So we have basically it's the light end of GA where this is really applicable and already on the market. Then we also have the eVTOLs, the kind of flying taxis of the future. So for that, there's the engine use, which is the Safran electric motor, which was certified by EASA, which is also a major milestone. No single eVTOL has been certified yet in Europe, but we have a bunch of different products that are in the pipeline. Volocopter, Ascendance. Ascendance is of course French. ERC Systems is German one. Vertical is from the UK. So these are likely going to happen in the next medium to short term. And then you also have really exciting kind of microliner, the Viridian project. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a German startup as well, which is going to be kind of the concept is a microliner, so it's very regional air mobility. It's a conventional fixed wing aircraft. It's going to be potentially fully battery electric. On the hydrogen side, we have fuel cell technology. So hydrogen combustion is not really something that too many companies are working on. Fuel cell seems more the way to go. Of course, here we have the issue of energy density and complexity and weight. Business aviation could potentially benefit from hydrogen cells. So you have the Beyond Aero business jet idea. You could have regional applications and mild hybridization with fuel cells. So think about the Cessna Grand Caravan or even bigger the ATR kind of regional aircraft size. And then what's I think the most exciting in a sense, and what's most likely to happen soon is hybrid electric powertrains. So hybrid electric can be a combination of battery electric plus very efficient turboprops. We know that turboprops are extremely efficient, especially when combined with sustainable aviation fuels. You can reach emissions reductions of up to 80%, even maybe more. Combine that with mild hybrid technology, and you get rid of the range limitations, the size limitations. So you have exciting projects like, again, France is really at the forefront of this. You have the Aura Aero ERA. It's the first and up until now the only project in Europe to receive funding as an aviation project from the Innovation Fund. The Innovation Fund being, of course, funded by the ETS, the emissions trading. It's a very cool project, 19 seats. You have some larger competitors like Heart Aerospace, originally from Sweden. They moved to the US because of lack of funding in Europe, so that's a problem that we have, but we're working on a 30-seater. So you have a lot of cool things happening. Next slide, please, which brings me to what kind of problems, what we need and what kind of problems we have. So what do we need from regulators, and what's the message that we are trying to spread in Brussels and in different European capitals? So first off, we need to be agnostic. We need to really enable everyone to try and succeed or try and fail, but we need to not pick and choose what technology we want. And we need to move towards a milestone-based funding mindset. So instead of being very prescriptive on what exactly it is that triggers funding, I mean, we have to adjust to the different projects, the different state of readiness, what they're working on, what they're doing, and we really need to support manufacturing. So that's a really, really important takeaway, because setting up manufacturing and ironing out those processes, being able to produce things at scale or using economies at scale in an efficient way is very difficult, especially for a startup or a scale-up. And right now, It's difficult to get R&D funding in Europe, but it's possible. The CORAC, the French CORAC, is a really good example of something that works. So it's less of a problem, but manufacturing is a big problem. Infrastructure, of course, we heard again from ADP today that they're doing that and they're working on that. Market creation. So PSO is this public service obligation. In France, there's many of them, especially with the Ultramer, the outside regions. That's probably not the best use for these aircraft because of the range, but there are also many within continental France. Basically, these are routes that are subsidized by the public because they are commercially not viable. They're usually short, but they're oftentimes the only lifeline of a disconnected region. So we need to bring the green PSO mentality there to create a market for these products so that they can actually start flying. And EASA funding is incredibly important, because if EASA can't work at pace, let's say, or with a good speed and good quality to certify these products, then they won't come to market, right? And then just the final word here, I mean, just some relatives, some buzzwords of why all of this is super timely right now. You have the MFF, the EU budget is being negotiated. It's going to determine the funding of EASA. It's going to determine the structure of how funding is available for manufacturing. It's going to determine if member states, so if France and Germany can have a different approach to how they fund their own companies. It's going in a good direction, but you know, nothing is decided until the end. The innovation fund is a bit too complicated. We need to make that simpler. State aid rules. Unfortunately, some companies in Europe have failed because they haven't been able to receive state aid because of antiquated rules. And the infrastructure. I mean, the infrastructure is key as well. This is a paper, it's a pitch for a paper that we wrote with some companies. You can see their logos there. It has a very detailed set of recommendations, and we're about to publish a new one focusing on everything that I just mentioned. And this time, here you see it's maybe 8 companies that participated. This time we have 15. 16, including Daher from France, and Ascendance and Safran. So I really encourage you to look at the Gamma website. It'll be published soon, and if you're interested in this, you will see basically what all of Europe's innovative GA industry is saying, and what we would like to see happen.
Just excuse me, I think I did not get the acronym PSO.
Yes, sorry, it's public service obligation. So these are, I can't think of any right now specifically for France, but I'm pretty sure that, that there are, I know that there are many. So from, yeah, not just.
The idea behind that is something like getting the state support some deadlines because
Yes.
Okay.
So this is an EU, there's an EU framework for and members, so different countries have to apply. And there's a list, there's an EU approved list where it says the state, France, Germany, whoever, can subsidize. It's like the post office, because you need to fly from the middle of France to Paris. You need to have a flight, otherwise people won't be able to get there. So it's not just outside of, but yeah. And mostly they're very short. They're regional flights. Usually they're regional, so that's why they would be ideal for something like the Viridian project, which we mentioned. I think the range is going to be 600-700 kilometers, I think, around the useful range. So that's a very, very good size for that kind of thing. Thank you. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Madame, for the question. I think it's we have to be careful in aviation to explain our acronyms.
Yes, sorry.
We are redoutable for that.
Oh yes, thank you.
One is enough.
Stereo, maybe. And as there are many people from France, in France there are 9 disciplines. 4 of them are under EASA regulation. It's aeroplane, gliding, balloons, and helicopters. And the other disciplines are even, yes, thank you, microlight, hang gliding and paragliding, parachuting, home-built experimental vintage aircraft, and model flying. And all these activities have in France sportive federations. And we are very lucky because the 9 presidents of the 9 disciplines are gathered many times a year to deal with their issues, concerns, and so on. And it's a very convenient organization in France to deal with DGSE, to deal with Ministry of Sports, and so on and so on. And there is something similar at the European level, because the Association Europe Air Sport, I'm representing today, has as members national aero clubs, just like Aero Club of Germany, of Austria, and so on, and have also the Pan-European Association for microlight, for hang gliding, and so on. And so we can have a global is European in that sense, vision and stakeholders of the light end of general aviation. And it's very interesting because no one of us is playing the 9 disciplines. And when working with such a large variety of passionate people, because light end of general aviation is made of passionate people, and they are delighted to share their passion. And the number are 700,000 pilots in Europe, which is not nothing. And that's the reason why it was about how these pilots are in relationship with the rest of the population. And so they are, next slide please. Oh, we can pass as for France. Interaction, relationship of these private pilots with, for example, motivated people. And private aviators, it's a community. And we all have some issues that to keep pilots, certified pilot, licensed pilot, in the game. Because as private pilots, they have job, they have family, and they have to save spare times to run their passion. And so keep flying enjoyable. Many licensed pilots are quitting the activity. Also, they would like to continue. So it's one important aspect. And the 4,000 club for aeronautic activities in France are the right place where we can have action for keeping flying enjoyable in a person-to-person relationship. Outsider, but motivated, for example, young people and general public. Whatever are the campaign against flying, when there is a World Championship in aerobatics in France, we have 100,000 visitors for the air show. And as there are only 40,000 pilots for powered aircraft, the majority of the audience is non-pilot. But they attend, they drive, they ride to come to look at an air show by 100,000 individuals. That's something we could miss, we could not be very aware of. It's still interest large part of the public, of the voters, of the citizen, whatever their convictions are. Now another category is, if we'll show, with motivated opponent. I'm supposed to talk about social aspects. Motivative opponent, next slide please, in the vicinity of aerodromes. Nobody needs much more explanation. Only way to get in contact with the vicinity of aerodromes, open doors of clubhouse, open doors of hangars, and listen. Maybe that's the most difficult point, listen. Because once people have expressed their griefs, their revendications, their very strong opinions and statements, the moment of starting a dialogue can commence, but after listening. And the fourth category within motivated opponent, institutions. For example, politicians, environmentalists, and so on. Politicians who are running a campaign are unreachable for the 6 months. It's true for operators of medium-sized aerodromes. They know that there are some silent period where there is no fruitful contact with them. But outside campaigning, once elected, everything becomes again possible. With environmentalists too, we can start dialogues. And for example, never give up, never show force, show commitment. And for example, for the French FFA, when we say we are operating 8 electric aircraft in standard conditions of operations in Aero Club, we ask, we are doing that, it's not enough, and you, what are you doing? And the dialogue can start, because at the moment there is nobody operating 8 electric aircraft. And many environmentalists are not aware of what does mean operating electric aircraft in real conditions of flying schools for private pilots, for commercial pilots. The FFA has taken the risk, the industrial risk. Nobody was certain of how long the battery will last and so on. And it was impossible for a single flying school or a single aero club to take the risk to buy such a pipistrelle. But with a global position, we could share the risk among all aero clubs. That's typical something we do, and we have to advertise to gain contact and to gain fruitful contact with institutions. That's so a private pilot can be involved in any of that direction in a flying club or in his personal or professional life. And depending on his personal ability to communicate with each other, he can do it in his club and develop some fellowship. He can do it by teaching young people. In France, there is the brevet d'initiation aéronautique, which is about 20,000 of pupils between 13 and 15 years old. And with a diploma, which is delivered by a joint organization between Ministère of Éducation Nationale and French Foreign Flying Federations. Mentorship is an ability which can really deserve. In the vicinity of aerodrome, we need lots and lots of volunteer. Goodwill, first motto. And with institution, steadiness, again and again and again. And in the vicinity of aerodrome, for example, it's very important to have all the users of the aerodrome gathered together. The restaurant owner, the operator of the maintenance workshop, and so on and so on, because they are all interested in having a lively aerodromes. And once they have solved their issues one to each other, they can present themselves with positive approaches to the counter users or organization for the residents around the aerodromes. And so it's something has to be built up and to be run and to be managed and to be maintained. That's about some social aspects of the life of a private pilot. And it's true whatever the discipline. Even parachutists are sometimes chased. And even some paragliders are chased by anti-chase people against some very natural avifauna, which is important to protect. No one among the private pilots has the idea that he has the right to disturb some birds or to disturb neighborhood on purpose. And so we have to construct many, many social relationships with diverse entities to save our freedom to fly. Thank you very much.
Is doing. So, looking at the time, maybe we are running a little bit of short for the questions, our panel questions. So I think we have presented quite a lot of information at the time being, and maybe I could simply open the floor to questions from you. If not, if you have no particular questions, I have certainly a couple of others for my colleagues. But I think maybe could be good time to have questions from you and from online, if there is, if any. So, yes, madam.
Just a question: when you offer an electric aircraft to an aero club, in terms of safety, how do you prepare the pilots to fly an electric aircraft versus a non-electric aircraft? Because I assume in terms of autonomy and so on, well, there shall be safety risks to be addressed.
I made the politically correct response first.
Okay.
We comply with regulation.
Of course.
And regulation take care of safety of third parties on ground and safety of pilots and safety of passengers. And it has been a long-lasting process to have ad hoc regulation, but inside the existing regulatory framework. So it's only a variant. And to pilot an electric-powered aircraft, it's a variant to gain, because it's an aircraft, and the range is shorter than another one. But once you have only a quarter of your tank left in a fossil carburant engine, you are already with short-term decision to do. So it's nothing new. It's an adaptation, and so it's a variant. And there are dedicated programs to teach people how to manage a very, very simple engine. Plus, minus, that's all. No carb heater, no variable pitch, no plus, minus. And it's about decision making, which is not really a technical skill. And EASA.
Yes, it's and I will pick up what you've just said, that it took a while until we've had this variant of rules adapted to this kind of novel aviation, and as you know, EASA is usually quite quickly into the game. We are approached by industry with these projects, and then they say, okay, we have this vehicle to be certified, can you help us? And sometimes they're completely non-conventional. And then lesson learned from pipistrel certification and similar, we did it before with gliders as well, is that EASA should be there very early, but not only from the product perspective, but also from the operations and licensing perspectives as well. So it's more kind of in the future operation-centric certification, so more involvement of other domains straight away from the start, and that can accelerate the process. It will respond also to the requests of industry that EASA to have sufficient resources and to be able to pick up those things up front. I hope this answers well. But and I underline, safety is always at the heart of discussions and considerations, and as said by Jean-Pierre, it's all about making sure that people can adapt to this new technology in a safe manner.
And we started 10 years ago with Pipistrel at the early time of the prototype with EASA. We were in the same meeting for mechanics, for pilot license, and so on. And we took it very earlier than to be issued, because the certification arrived during the COVID crisis, and the latest adjustment in regulatory framework have been voted this year. But we have been operating for the last 5 years our fleet of electric aircraft, because it was an agreement with the French DGAC and EASA. And without working in a very, very tight and strong and powerful agreement altogether, nothing would be possible. And with all people with goodwill, it took 10 years. So that's the scale to keep in mind when we are going to talk about volocopter and so on. For only replacing an engine in a certified aircraft, electricity instead of fossil carburant, it took 10 years.
Okay. Vas-y.
Yeah, just a question on my side. So thank you first for your intervention. It was very interesting. My question is more related to the interface of general aviation versus the commercial aviation. I'm in charge of operation in both airports, Nantes Atlantic and Saint-Nazaire. In both airports, we have big aircraft, commercial aviation, and we have aero clubs. We have general aviation. We even have a parachutist, for instance. So to illustrate, in Saint-Nazaire, we have a parachutist and a training school on the left, and on the right, we have the beluga activity on quite a small global surface. So it's very interesting. I have to say, from my point of view, it's every day is really passionating as we discover how the both worlds are working not really together, and that is my point. In Nantes, we have a lot of commercial aircraft, and we also have the Aero Club on the side, and we do some actions. We had the opportunity to welcome the Pipistrel, for instance. We do some days dedicated to the BIA as another example, but still I find quite challenging to embrace the general aviation into a world of commercial aviation. And it's not very easy to do some pedagogy, to communicate to the big part of the airport, let's say, apart from the pilots. As you mentioned, on the social part of general aviation, we have this link through the pilots who are both working in commercial airlines, and also they do have their own aircraft. So there is this link, but for all the other people working on an airport, it's quite challenging, I find, to make it meet together. I'm not sure, sorry for my English. So how do you, what's your view on this, and what we can do better to embrace the general aviation into a more global activity, especially in terms of environmental topics, which, as you mentioned, the general aviation is a place to start with some innovative solution. It's also an opportunity to bring it to the commercial aviation, and I'm not always comfortable. I don't know how to do and to help people to take the next step.
Okay, from Europe, this was a very local issue that represents the wider European dimension. Obviously, there are different, more stringent rules to be applied to commercial airlines, and sometimes their application resulted in separation of the two worlds. We have seen issues that pilots even did have a problem with access to the airports. They are not welcome during the peak hours because the airlines are coming. Of course, they disturb. But a lot of these things could be resolved through understanding of the needs of both sides and reconciling them in the dialogue. When it comes to making more link to the others than pilots, because obviously pilots there is they are active in both areas, but for those who work at the airport, it could be probably interesting to have a regular sessions with the local clubs, so they can be exposed to the aviation authorities activities, and they could understand better the other world, and vice versa. It could be good, and we see it across Europe that airports are regional, especially are doing the open days where they invite public to see their operations from the hindsight, so the people start to see what they haven't seen and haven't been aware. I've mentioned it already, but I reiterate and I'm mentioning it again. After the COVID, we have seen that those who are passionate to aviation, they come back to the aviation job because they love to be at the airport. They like to see airplanes flying by. I will just conclude by saying this one of the good topics to start with this cross activities would be this innovative technology, because it's, as you said probably rightly, it's the novel technologies will be tested in GA. People will learn how to deal with them. Also the airport people, the GA people will start learning how to operate them. It will decrease the exposure of the airport, negative impacts to the wider surroundings. And in the end, it's a combined effort. So yeah, it's working together closely and making the events for both sides. That would be my recommendation.
Perhaps before you answer, Jean-Pierre, I would like to give the floor to Peter so he could explain to us perhaps how it's done in other countries, in particular in the United States.
I mean, so Gamma has a very strong presence in the U.S. It started in the U.S. We're a global trade association, but indeed, in the U.S. the presence of GA is outsized compared to Europe. I mean, it's very important. You had the whole barnstormers movement back in the day when flying was taking off. It's much more seen as a means of transport and less of a nuisance, and more as a kind of lifeblood of a lot of rural communities that are disconnected. So if you think of the AirVenture Oshkosh event every July, I mean, that's the biggest in the world. I mean, you have 50,000 people flying there with their own aircraft. So indeed, general aviation is not seen really as something weird that some weird people do. It's really kind of a pathway to learn how to fly. People start very young, 16, 17, they're doing gliding, and then they're getting their PPL. So I mean, it's obviously different because of the geography of the United States, which is spread out, not so densely populated as Europe. So that's one thing that we won't be able to change, and probably Europe will never have that same kind of level of appreciation. But if you think about it, Germany has a bunch of regional airports that are unused, and we mentioned the range of these new products that are coming out. So maybe it can be a new renaissance. I'm sure France has a lot of regional airports as well, where you can deploy these clean aviation products and maybe win some new support from people who are more interested in the sustainability aspect of things, and can see really the benefit of flying zero emission or close to zero emission and having that connectivity benefit. So I think it can be an interesting win-win.
Thank you, Peter. Jean-Pierre?
I think for Nantes, for example, or Saint-Nazaire, what we have seen is that local conditions are really, really important. So there are some risk analysis, risk about safety, risk about economic situation, because part of them are economic issues, and also reputation issues. And it's very important even for the institution of DGAC. We saw that around to Sulenoble, now Paris, Saclay, Versailles, named. And people were upset that there were no monitoring, for example, in their mind. Pilots were allowed to do everything. It's not true. But there was no confidence enough, and there was no evidence that they are monitored, they are supervised, and sometimes they are fined. And I think to develop some local knowledge, shared knowledge about each other among the community of aviators, and then outside with the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is the 10 miles around is very important. And whatever it is, it's about the traffic, about the noise, about the hour of flying and so on. And I think local study, issues, dialogue is the beginning of everything.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Is there other questions,
Sorry,
please?
if I can ask
Yeah,
another
yeah,
question.
please.
I think, Peter, you talk about the variety of energy sources for general aviation as an asset for manufacturers. Sure. I was wondering if, from an operator point of view, or also for the EASA point of view, this variety can become a challenge when it comes to investment for ground infrastructure. If there is any policy that is planned, because, you know, to provide this energy supplies and this variety of supplies can be a challenge. And do you have any return of experience of the profitability of electrical aircraft in terms of flying time for flying school or clubhouses? I mean, they cannot fly continuously during the day. So it's two different questions about profitability and capability to answer to this supply. Thank you.
Who wants to take that one? Perhaps Jean-Pierre could start with the experience of the Pipistrel, because you have their real data.
Yeah, sorry. So one question was about the profitability of the electric flight versus the combustion flight, and also in terms of need to charge for a longer period of time. And I think that can be very well picked up by Jean-Pierre. But I will try to reply on the other one. And this brings me to what I was trying to mention is one of the key pillars, greener, faster. What we try to achieve, we want to be greener faster than it would be normal pace. And we see the two initiatives there, policy initiatives, important there. We cannot imagine that the electric aircraft will have different charging standards and will require different charging infrastructure. We see there is a interest from airports and investors to invest, but they want to have a certainty. Therefore, we will develop a EASA policy, which will say, if you proceed as investor this way, this is a good way to proceed because you are future-proof. And we don't want to distinguish between EASA and non-EASA aircraft. It's important because there is not enough money to be put to duplicate infrastructure. The fuel policies, for us, the key thing will be safety. So basically, we cannot imagine the new tanks being installed just because of new fuels are on the market. They should be fully interchangeable with the existing fuels, and they should be drop-in basically fully, so that you can mix whatever percentage of existing fuel and fully sustainable fuel. And the main argument will be safety. So we will be working on the policy document and documents to make that very clear to the investors who want to invest in those developments. And when it comes to cost, there is also one important dimension: the utilization of the existing fleet, regardless, even in schools. They don't fly all the time because there is not enough instructors. They need to break. Students need to have pause between the training flights, and this can be perfectly utilized for the charging of the aircraft. And when it comes to range of those aircraft, we have seen some interesting applications of the same product having combustion and electric engine. So short flights, electric. Short flights are most disturbing in the vicinity of the airport because they are all around all day long. And if that could be quieter, everybody will be happier. And when you fly cross country, that's not too much exposure to the one spot. So it's more spread exposure, which is better acceptable. And then also there is a dimension of combined technologies, and I think Peter could talk about it for hours. Imagine that you have an electric aircraft that flies electric, but you overcome the problem of the regulatory reserves by having a sustainable fuels or even fossil fuels, but not used, only used in emergency. So it's less mass, and it's proven technology. And there are some projects in that direction already, and this is very, very clever way of doing things. And one last bit on infrastructure, and I think it's important to mention. Usual flight of GA, and if you ask pilots, 90% of them will answer that last 10 years, my longest flight was 1.5 hours, probably, in that range. And we are very close to that. Aura Aero actually design criteria 1.5 hours. So when you have 1.5 hours, you fly 1.5 hours plus reserves, you stop by, you recharge, you check your NOTAMs, you check the weather on the ground while you spend 30 minutes of charging, you have your physio needs done, and then you continue another 1.5 hours. So you have, for private aviation, it could be actually more interesting, and we see it with cars. We need to charge, but when you drive a lot electric car, as I do, I find it, I cannot wait for the next stop, actually, just to have a little bit of break. So I see it happening in general aviation, especially in leisure and training schools. And I'm sorry, I overstepped to your area, Jean-Pierre.
So I have very few to add. It's Pipistrel, Electro-Pipistrel, Vélis Electro, as a domain of employment, of utilization, of operations. And any flying school, any flight instructor, any private pilot has to cope with this area of the game. And it's compatible with almost half of the flying lessons in a flying school, because it's short lesson, it's around the home base, and there are briefing before flying, briefing, debriefing, and so on, and it's manageable. It's not a solution, it's a mean to have nice flying lessons. And nice, I mean, accepted by the vicinity.
And if I may to add just one sentence, I'm educated economist, and new technology will work if there is an economic sense. And we see it happening with electric aircraft. They are much simpler to operate, they're lower maintenance costs, lower power costs. So this will change the aviation. So look at the economy of the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we need to close because there is another panel after us. So first of all, I would like to thank you, my three panelists, for their very good intervention. That was, I think we have been able to explain what is general aviation, how the importance of cooperation, the importance of working together with the authority and with all the actors. We have been able to show perhaps that also technology is a good place in general aviation to introduce technology, and we didn't discuss that perhaps too much, but it's also, and for me it's an important aspect, it's I would say the first step in a career to aviation. It's a way to bring young people to aviation, and there, as far as I can look, aviation doesn't, I would say, people are not so interested in aviation as they were before, and there will be a need for a lot of professions in the near future. So thank you for the questions also from the floor about, I would say, the cooperation at airport, how we can, I would say, work better together. Thank you for the questions on how we introduce technology, and I think you got some good answers by Vladimir and Jean-Pierre. So on this, I would like to thank you all, and we'll probably a little bit available outside, but I'm afraid we have to leave. Thank you very much.